We never really knew the boys across the street, Ryan and Jake. They lived 2 houses down in a sagging old 2-story with peeling paint and boarded-up windows, like the kind of place that forgot what a coat of fresh paint felt like. Their dad was a trucker, rarely home, and when he was, he yelled loud enough for the whole street to hear. No mom in the picture. They weren't exactly what you'd call friendly. They didn't ride bikes with the other kids, never joined in Halloween or fireworks. Most of the time, they just sat on their front porch, chewing sunflower seeds and spitting them into the dirt. But they watched us, all the time. I was 13. My little brother Sam was 10. We'd lived in that neighborhood our whole lives, and our parents were the type to say, "Just be home before the streetlights come on." It was the 90s. You got more freedom when your parents thought you were safe. Then one summer afternoon, Ryan and Jake walked up our driveway. They didn't smile, didn't say hi. Jake, the younger one with twitchy eyes and a buzz cut, just tilted his chin and said, "You guys want to shoot BB guns?" Sam's eyes lit up. I hesitated. "Where?" "Down by the river," Ryan muttered, already turning away. "Got a spot." Sam tugged my sleeve, practically begging with his eyes. I wasn't thrilled, but I figured, how bad could it be? We followed them through the field, behind the cul-de-sac, toward the woods where the trees grew thick and the air always felt colder. They didn't talk as we walked, just trudged forward in heavy boots, dressed head to toe in camouflage, dragging a dirty green duffel bag behind them. It was a long hike, longer than I thought, and when we reached the riverbank, Jake dropped the duffel with a grunt and unzipped it. Inside weren't BB guns. They were rifles, real ones. "This one's loaded," Jake said, grinning as he held one out to Sam. I stepped between them fast. "Hold on, you said BB guns." Jake shrugged. We lied. Before I could say another word, Ryan raised one and fired into the trees. The crack shattered the stillness like thunder, sending birds screeching into the air. My whole body went cold. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I yelled, yanking the rifle from Sam's hands. "We're leaving." Ryan didn't say anything, just stared through me with those dead-fish eyes of his. Jake chuckled under his breath. As we turned to go, I heard a voice behind us, flat, like a threat, barely wrapped in humor. "Better keep quiet." I didn't look back. We walked fast, didn't run. I remember telling Sam not to say a word when we got home. Not to Mom, not to Dad, not to anyone. I was afraid, but I didn't know what real fear was yet. Not until that night. I woke around 2 a.m. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I remember thinking it felt wrong. Then I felt it. A breeze, cold, software, whispering across my face. I sat up and saw the curtain swaying. The window was open, wide open. I didn't open it. Then I felt something press against the back of my head. Hard, cold, metallic. A voice breathed into my ear. "Shh." I froze, every muscle locked. "I saw you tell your brother not to say anything," Jake whispered. "Good call." I tried to turn my head. He pressed the barrel harder. "If you tell anyone, especially my dad, I'll kill you." His voice was ice. "You, your brother, your mom, your dad. I'll burn your house down with you inside it." Then, just like that, he was gone. Slipped through the window like a shadow. I slammed it shut, locked it, stuffed a chair under the handle. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. After that, things changed. They started small, subtle. I'd see them at their bedroom window, staring into mine, not moving, not blinking, just watching. Sometimes both of them. Sometimes just Jake, that smirk always on his face. I told myself maybe they were bluffing. Maybe it was all some sick joke. But I couldn't risk it. Not with Sam. I made him promise to stay away from them. I made up a story about them being weird and troublemakers, something a younger kid wouldn't argue with. Then the rock came. I was brushing my teeth late one night when the window exploded, glass shattering, frames splintering. I ducked. When I looked out, Jake was standing across the street, arms at his sides, a pistol in his hand, pointed right at me, and he laughed. They both did, just stood there laughing, like it was the funniest thing in the world. That's when I knew. They weren't just trying to scare me. They enjoyed it. We moved 3 weeks later, packed up, left town. My dad got a new job across the state, and I begged him not to tell the neighbors. I never told him why. Never told anyone. I thought leaving would fix it. That distance could bury it. But some things you don't shake. Some things live in you. Even now, 30 years later, I can still feel that breeze across my face. Still hear Jake's voice in my ear. Still picture that grin. For years, I watched over my shoulder, triple-checked the locks, slept with a bat by the bed. And even now, part of me wonders, how close did I come to dying that night? What scared me most wasn't the guns. It was the way they smiled when they held them. Like they weren't pretending. Like they'd done it before, and might do it again. Epilogue. You want to know the truth? Sometimes I look them up. Ryan and Jake, can't help it. Last I heard, Ryan joined the army, dishonorably discharged. Bar fight that ended with a guy in the ICU. Jake, no social media, no job listings, no address. Just one news article, a blurry mugshot. Headline read, "Local man arrested in connection with gun trafficking ring." I clicked it once, never again, because all I could think about was that night and the whisper in my ear. If you tell anyone, I'll kill your whole family. He was 13 when he said that. 13. What kind of kid says something like that? What kind of kid means it? Fresh out of college, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in a crummy part of town. You know the type. Peeling paint, flickering hallway lights, and neighbors who all looked like they were trying to disappear. I took the place because it was cheap, because I was broke, because I thought I was still young enough to tolerate all the little cracks in the walls and in my life. I learned pretty quickly that what you see in daylight doesn't always match what you feel when the sun goes down. My apartment shared a wall with the unit next door. 2 women lived there. One was older, mid-60s maybe. Gray hair always pulled tight, face lined with disapproval. I'd only ever seen her in long black cardigans, even in the dead of summer. Never smiled, never waved. The other, well, she was younger, late 20s maybe. But something was wrong. Not just socially awkward or quirky, something serious. She would rock back and forth on the front steps, muttering to herself, pulling at her hair, staring at corners of the ceiling. Once, I saw her clawing at the mailbox, whispering, "They're inside. They know." And sometimes, she pointed at me. I'd be walking up the stairs, keys in hand, and I'd feel it, that gaze, her finger, shaking, accusing, and her mouth moving, lips curled in a silent curse. It gave me chills every time, but I never said anything. I figured, mental illness, not her fault. I had a cousin with schizophrenia. I told myself I could be patient, understanding. Then came the night they crossed the line. It was late, past midnight. Their arguing had been going on for hours, shouting, stomping, walls vibrating. I'd had enough. I grabbed a hoodie and stormed next door, knocked loud enough to be heard over their chaos. The door flew open. The older woman stood there like a stone gargoyle. Her eyes raked over me. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "But it's past midnight. I need to work in the morning. Can you please quiet down?" She didn't answer. From behind her, the younger one appeared, Her pupils were huge, her breathing fast, and then, with zero warning, she charged, screaming, "How dare you!" I stumbled back as the door slammed in my face. Just like that, silence. I stood there for a second, heart pounding, and then I laughed, nervous, dumb laughter. Walked back to my place, muttering to myself. Maybe I'd overstepped. Maybe I shouldn't have knocked. Maybe I should have just put in earbuds and dealt with it. But around 1 a.m., everything went still. No more screaming, no more stomping, no more muttering. It was a rare kind of silence in that building, and it felt like a gift. I went to bed relieved, at least for a while. I don't know what time it was when I woke up, just that my clock read 3:04 a.m. I didn't hear a sound, so much as I felt one. Like a whisper had brushed past my ear and pulled me up out of sleep. I sat up, eyes still blurry, confused. The room was dark, quiet. And then I heard it. A shuffle. Light. Close. I thought maybe it was the pipes, or the heat kicking on. But then I turned my head and froze. There, inches from my face. A face pressed against the edge of my bed. Her face, the younger woman. Her mouth twisted open in a feral grin. Eyes wide, whites gleaming in the glow of my charging phone. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then she screamed. An inhuman, guttural shriek that didn't belong in any throat. A sound so raw it made my teeth hurt. I shot out of bed and bolted from the room, slamming the door behind me. My fingers were shaking as I punched 911 into my phone. She pounded on the door, screeching nonsense. I couldn't make out the words, just sounds, wails. I stayed on the line with the dispatcher until I heard the knock, the other knock, polite, measured. The cops. They found her curled on the floor of my bedroom, muttering, crying, smiling. They didn't cuff her, just led her out gently, with gloves and soft voices. I remember watching them walk her next door, back into her unit, and standing there in the hallway, watching me the whole time. Was the older woman. Her expression didn't change, not once. She just stared and stared. A long, venomous stare that said everything her mouth never did, like this isn't over. The police filed a report, asked me if I wanted to press charges. I said no. She was clearly ill. I just wanted it over. They recommended I file for a protection order. I never did. Why? Because I was afraid. Afraid of what she might do if someone told her she wasn't allowed to come near me. Afraid of the caretaker's silence. That icy stare. Afraid, mostly, that none of it mattered, because I was still here. And so were they. Weeks passed. The noises stopped, mostly. I guess they were trying to keep a low profile. But the staring didn't stop. Every night, I'd pull back the blinds in my bedroom just to check. And most nights, there she'd be. The older woman, standing at her window, not moving, not blinking, just watching. One night, I left the blinds open on purpose, left the light on, sat in bed with a book and tried to pretend everything was normal. Around midnight, I looked up, and she was smiling. Not a kind smile. A thin, curling thing, cold, almost proud. I closed the blinds after that. For good. Strange things started happening. Little things. My mailbox left open. Footsteps in the hall when no one was there. Once I found a single black glove on my welcome mat. I didn't own any gloves. Then came the smell. Sweet, rotting, like spoiled meat and cheap perfume. It leaked through the shared wall. I told myself it was trash. Maybe an animal died in the vent. Maybe. I started sleeping with a chair under the doorknob, wedges against the windows. I bought a security camera, cheap one. Mounted it facing the hallway. 2 days later, it was gone. Just vanished. I started looking for new apartments, even took a few tours. But something always stopped me. The deposit, the timing, the feeling that leaving wouldn't be enough. Because even when I was away, I felt them, like eyes on the back of my neck, like breath on my pillow. I woke up one night to my bedroom door, slowly creaking open. It took me a second to realize I'd locked it. I'd locked everything. I sat up, whispering, "Hello," into the dark. No answer. But I heard breathing, heavy, close. I flicked on the bedside lamp. No one. The door was ajar, just a crack. No footsteps, no sound, just that smell again. Perfume and meat. The final straw? I came home from work one day and found something tucked under my pillow. It was a photograph of me, sleeping, face half buried in the pillow, mouth open, peaceful. It had been taken from inside the room. I moved out that weekend. Didn't pack much. Left furniture, half my books, even my bed. I called a buddy from college, stayed on his couch for a month, eventually found a new place on the other side of the city. Brighter, safer. Windows with working locks and a building manager who actually answers calls. I should feel better. But I don't. Because I still see her. Not every night, not even every week. But sometimes, when I'm walking home, I'll catch a glimpse in a window, a black cardigan, a pale face, eyes that never blink. Sometimes I get mail with no return address, just my name. Inside, paper scraps, burnt edges, a lock of hair. Once, a small, rusted key. I changed my phone number, my email, my job, but part of me knows. She's still watching, still waiting. Because some neighbors, they don't forget. And some doors, they never really close. Do I think she'll come for me again? Yes. I just don't know when. But every night, I sleep with a light on, just in case. And sometimes, I wake up at 3:04 a.m. to the whisper of a breeze. And I swear to God, I feel her breath against my cheek. 5 years ago, tragedy struck the house next door. David and Linda were the kind of neighbors everyone wished they had. Polite, quiet, always quick with a wave or a kind word. Their son, Evan, was just 14, a quiet kid, polite to adults, shy around other kids. I wouldn't say we were close, but we chatted at the mailbox, helped each other shovel snow in winter, exchanged Christmas cookies. Then, one October evening, David showed up on my doorstep, pale as the moon. "Evan's missing," he said. His voice didn't sound real, like someone else was using his throat to speak. That week blurred into a surreal nightmare. Police cars lined the block. Helicopters circled overhead, canvassing, dogs, posters on telephone poles and store windows. A missing boy's face on every surface, every screen. But nothing ever came of it. No leads, no witnesses, not even a trace of Evan. One minute he was in his room doing homework, the next, gone. As weeks turned into months, the search faded. The flyers came down, the cops stopped calling, and the neighborhood returned to life, except for the house next door. David and Linda changed. David stopped mowing the lawn. Linda stopped leaving the house altogether. Where laughter and backyard grilling once lived, now there was only silence. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear muffled crying through the hedges. Grief has a sound of its own, and once you hear it, you never forget it. People moved on. It's not that they didn't care. It's just, the world doesn't stop. And when you're not the one who lost everything, it's easy to keep going. I didn't forget. I tried to be a good neighbor. Dropped off casseroles, offered to help with yard work. David always thanked me, but his eyes never quite met mine after that. And then came that night. It was the first truly cold evening of the season, early October, just like 5 years ago. The air had that sharp, brittle edge that makes your breath look like smoke. David knocked on my door, holding his coat tight around him. "Hey," he said. Do you have a shovel I could borrow? I blinked. Yeah, sure. Everything okay? He nodded, too quickly. Just fixing something in the yard. One of the fence posts is loose. Something in his voice didn't sit right, but I handed him the shovel. Bring it back whenever. He gave a faint smile. Thanks. That should have been the end of it. But something kept nagging at me. So when I went to bed, I left the upstairs curtain cracked, just enough to see into his backyard. What I saw chilled me more than the autumn air. David was digging, not just a hole, a grave, wide, deep, the kind of hole that takes hours, maybe all night, to finish. He worked under moonlight, methodical, his breaths rising in misty clouds. It wasn't a fence post he was dealing with. I watched him pause, wipe his brow, then drag something heavy into view. It was a black garbage bag, large, misshapen, and he struggled with it, like it weighed a lot. I couldn't look away. I wish I had. Curiosity got the better of me. I stepped out into the cold, crept toward the fence, and called softly, David? Need a hand? He spun around so fast he nearly dropped the shovel. His face, God, I'll never forget the look in his eyes. Panic, guilt, maybe even fear. No, he said, his voice cracking. Please, just leave. It wasn't anger. It was pleading. I nodded and backed away, but I didn't go inside. I watched. From my bedroom window, hidden behind the curtain, I saw him lower the bag into the hole. He stood over it for a long time, like he was saying something, praying maybe. Then he slowly began to cover it up. At some point, he looked up and saw me. We locked eyes. It was like ice water down my spine. I ducked instinctively, breath caught in my throat. When I looked again, he was gone. So was the shovel. And the next morning, the hole vanished. Not a patch of disturbed soil in sight, just perfectly smoothed earth, like it had always been that way. The shovel was leaned against my porch, cleaned and dry. And David? Well, he hasn't spoken to me since. Not a wave, not a nod, not even a glance, until a few weeks later. It was midday, bright sunshine, no reason to feel spooked. I happened to glance toward his house and saw him, standing at his upstairs window, staring at me, expressionless, still, like he'd been standing there for hours. I shut the curtain. That time, I did not look again. I told my wife. She said I was imagining things, that grief messes people up. Maybe he was burying something to help him move on, she offered. Maybe a memory box, clothes, something symbolic. I wanted to believe that. I needed to. But something was gnawing at me. Something that wouldn't let go. Because here's the thing. David had already done that. A year after Evan disappeared, we held a candlelight vigil. Linda released a paper lantern. David burned a small box of Evan's belongings, a symbolic farewell. He told us he was trying to accept it, trying to heal. So what was he burying 5 years later? And why lie about it? I started noticing other things, small things. Their porch light, which hadn't worked in years, suddenly flickering on in the dead of night. Linda walking the hallway with a flashlight, stopping in front of the boys' old room, just standing there. Sometimes I'd hear faint music coming from their house, a lullaby. I couldn't place it, but it was always around 3 a.m. And once, I could have sworn I saw movement in Evan's room, just a flicker of something behind the curtain. But when I looked again, it was still. One morning, I saw David in his driveway. He looked thinner, paler. His eyes were bloodshot. He saw me watching from my porch and stopped mid-step. Then, without warning, he raised his hand, not in a wave, but with a finger to his lips. Shh. And then, he walked inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at the window for hours, watching their yard, their house. At 2:13 a.m., their back porch light blinked on. I saw a shape move across the yard. Small, quick. Not David, not Linda. It was a child, short, slender, barefoot. It stopped near the flower bed and crouched, like it was playing in the dirt. I froze. My blood ran cold. I wanted to scream, to call someone, but I didn't. I just watched. Eventually, the porch light went out. The figure disappeared. The next morning, I walked the edge of their property, near the spot where David had dug, and there, in the soft earth, were footprints. Tiny ones, barefoot. I haven't told anyone. Not officially, not the police, because I'm not sure what's worse, that I might be losing my mind, or that I'm not, that something is still out there, watching, wandering, and that David knows. Sometimes I wonder if what I saw that night in the garbage bag was a person, Evan, or what used to be Evan. But then I wonder something even worse. What if it wasn't his body? What if it was something else entirely? Something they tried to bury, but couldn't. And now, every night, I close the curtains. I lock the doors. I tell myself I'm safe. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right, I swear I hear soft footsteps in the yard, like a child, laughing, digging, waiting.